During the 15th century, there were many different types of soldier which filled niche roles on the ever-evolving battlefield. Today we'll be highlighting a particularly interesting yet underappreciated unit, the Coustillier. During the mid-1400s, cavalry were beginning to be used for a wider variety of jobs, including mounted archers, light cavalry, and heavy cavalry. A Coustillier was a lightly armoured mounted unit, similar to a hobelar, and were generally regarded as a lower-ranking member of the knight's retinue. They were commonly used as scouts, racing ahead of the main army to check for threats and keep an eye on enemy movements, and were also used as a reliable and fast-engaging unit, navigating all across the battlefield wherever they were needed, either to execute a quick lance strike into an enemy line, or to cut down vulnerable opponents such as archers. First, the Coustillier wears his undergarments, which include tall riding boots. These are often depicted in contemporary artwork and are exclusively reserved for mounted soldiers. These soldiers were required to mount and dismount at a moment's notice, so a sturdy set of riding boots, sometimes referred to as riding hose, were a key component for Coustilliers. An arming doublet is worn, which involves a lengthy lacing up process. Mail was still commonly used throughout the 15th century, often being used to cover vulnerable areas of the body which were difficult to cover with plate armour, such as the neck, armpits and groin. Here a mail collar or standard is being worn. The English particularly favoured a mail collar instead of a bever or gorget, which were components of plate armour which provided more protection, but offered less mobility, more weight, and restricted airflow, as well as making it harder to shout and communicate to other soldiers across the battlefield. A mail shirt is then worn to protect the torso, also notably doubling up the protection around the neck area. The mail shirt is made up of thousands of iron rings, all riveted together in a dense weave. This provided excellent protection against slashing attacks and glancing blows, while also allowing for a good level of mobility. A livery coat made from wool is worn to show the colours of the soldier's heraldry. Fabric components of armour like this are often overlooked but were a vital part of the armouring process. Not only did they show off the company's colours, livery coats also provided a small amount of additional comfort to the wearer, and some livery coats worn over the top of plate armour would also help protect the plate from scratches and rust. Here you can see a fully armoured English knight of the same period who is wearing a livery coat over his harness. The Coustillier now wears a cuirass made up of a breastplate and backplate. This cuirass is designed to be worn with a set of folds, but the soldier has chosen not to wear his full configuration of armour, as he is fulfilling the role of light cavalry, so speed and mobility takes precedent over being fully protected. From what we understand, Coustilliers were not meant to get stuck in melee combat, but instead were trained to race around the battlefield, harassing enemy lines and causing disruption to opponents' formations. And, as previously mentioned, Coustilliers were also assigned with scouting out the enemy, so speedily returning to hand over their intel was of utmost importance. Interestingly, this style of breastplate is actually slightly outdated, as this Coustillier is representational of the 1470s, which highlights that the Coustillier may have had some outdated armour, likely as it was cheaper or it was issued kit given to the soldier by his lord's armoury, as opposed to owning it himself. This reinforces the idea that Coustilliers were typically lower-ranking soldiers, yet still prosperous enough to be part of a knight's personal retinue. An alternative form to torso protection commonly worn by Coustilliers was the brigandine, or just a mail shirt. A belt containing an arming sword in a scabbard is worn around the waist. This sword is called a Coustil, which is the origin of the name Coustillier. The Coustillier now wears his arm harness, made up of an enclosed rear brace to cover the upper arm, a couter in a typical Italian export style to protect the elbow, complete with articulated lames of steel which allow for a good level of movement, and a vambrace or lower cannon, which was also enclosed to protect the lower arm. This arm harness is attached to the body by lacing to the upper arm, then the straps are tightened to ensure a comfortable fit. The last component of armour to be worn is the helmet, which is an Italian export sale. During the late 1400s, Italian workshops were making armour on an industrial scale and exported to many other countries in high quantities. While England did make armour locally, the kingdom also purchased a lot of armour from Italy, especially helmets such as these. This classic sale features a hinged visor and a plume holder. Salets were ideal for Coustilliers as they provided a high level of protection while also allowing for good visibility and air circulation, which are ideal for carrying out the main jobs of a Coustillier, such as scouting and communicating across the battlefield. The main weapon that a Coustillier would use was a spear or light lance. It was a very versatile weapon for both mounted and dismounted combat, and the weapon's light weight meant that it wouldn't impede the Coustillier's ability to speedily charge across the battlefield. At this point, I would like to give a big thank you to the reenactor featured in today's video. He is Zachary Evans, and he owns his own YouTube channel which I highly recommend you subscribe to. I will leave a link to his channel in the description below, so please support him by subscribing and watching his videos. Supporting fellow reenactors is key to ensuring that the great heritage hobby of historical reenactment can continue to thrive, and these videos help teach people what real authentic armour used to look like in various periods of history.